In 1973, The Exorcist caused so much panic that theaters had to hire medical professionals to deal with fainting audience members. In 2018, Hereditary had people walking out of theaters in masses, but there's one film on this list that was actually banned in multiple countries because viewers couldn't handle what they saw, and it's not the movie you're thinking of. In fact, this movie is so scary, I shit my pants watching it. I've spent the last decade of my life literally watching thousands of horror movies. I'm talking everything from mainstream hits to obscure international films that probably will put me on some sort of government watch list. And these 10 movies I'm going to talk about today, they're ones that made me seriously reconsider my life choices. But before we start, let me warn you, we're not talking about your typical jump scare factory films. These are movies that are going to stick with you, the ones that will make you check your closet at 3 a.m. and then check it again at 4 a.m. because you don't trust what you saw the first time. And look, I can already see you saying, I don't get scared of horror movies. First of all, you're lying to yourself. And second, hit the subscribe button and like this video because I'm about to prove you wrong. And by the end of this video, you're going to realize that I have good taste in horror and you're going to be recommended some of the scariest horror movies out there. The Exorcist isn't just scary. It's the kind of film that makes you want to apologize to your TV just in case it's somehow listening. And I'm not even religious, but this movie had me Googling where to buy holy water on Amazon Prime. But here's where it makes it truly terrifying. Everything you're seeing, that's practical effects. No CGI, no digital touch-ups. Just raw nightmare-fueled practical effects that still hold up today. When Reagan's head spins around, that's a real mechanical head they built. When the bed shakes, they're actually shaking it. The only special effect they couldn't do practically was the vomit scene. And that's just because they couldn't teach anyone to projectile vomit on command. Though I'm pretty sure that they tried anyways. People literally passed out watching this film. And not just a few people, we're talking mass hysteria. Theaters had to have medical staff on standby. One guy actually broke his jaw when he fainted and hit the seat in front of him. Imagine being so scared by a movie that you need dental work afterwards. But here's the really messed up part. It still works today. Show this movie to anyone who's never seen it, and I guarantee you they're not sleeping right for at least a week. Why? Because The Exorcist isn't just about jump scares or gore. It's about watching something innocent being corrupted by an evil that you can't fight, can't reason with, and can't escape. And if you think I'm exaggerating about its impact, let me tell you about the first time watching it. I was 16, thought I was tough, and ended up sleeping with my lights on for 3 days. I'm not proud of it, but I'm honest about it at least. Plus, this movie single-handedly killed the babysitting industry in the 70s. Think about it. Would you want to watch someone else's kid after seeing this? Because I get nervous when my niece says she has an imaginary friend. What if that friend doesn't like me? I'm already socially awkward. What if I piss off some demon imaginary friend? And I don't even have to mention how the actress actually got hurt during this movie due to the practical effects, but that's for another video in the future, so subscribe if you want to see that. But if you think demonic possession is scary, wait until you see what happens when family trauma meets occult horror, because Hereditary isn't just going to scare you, it's going to make you want to cancel your next family reunion altogether. You know those ancestry DNA tests everyone's obsessed with? Yeah, maybe don't do one after watching Hereditary. This movie isn't just about things that go bump in the night. It's about things that go therapy for life in broad daylight. Speaking of those things, I took a 23andMe once. It was interesting. I found out I'm like 3% Neanderthal, so do with that what you will. Don't start saying I'm stupid for jokes though, that's gonna hurt my feelings. At first glance, this looks like your typical family dealing with grief story. You know, the kind Oscar voters often love. Quick thought though, why does the Oscars hate horror movies? I hate how no good horror movies ever win any awards because film critics are a bunch of snobs that just can't understand good cinema because it's scary. Anyways, this movie takes a sharp left turn into what the actual hell territory, faster than your dad trying to take a shortcut on a road trip. Let's talk about Toni Collette for a second. You know how your mom gets when you don't answer her text for an hour? Well, multiply that by about 1,000 and add some demonic influence, and you're still not even close to the level of unhinged we're dealing with here. Her performance isn't just Oscar worthy. It's the kind of acting that probably had her therapist calling her therapist. But what makes Hereditary truly terrifying isn't the big moments everyone talks about. Sure, the car scene is, well, you know. And if you don't know, I'm not gonna ruin your day by describing it, but if you haven't seen this movie, make it like the first 30 minutes and then come back to this video and tell me what you think. No, what really gets under your skin are the quiet moments in this movie. The ones where you're squinting at the dark corners of the screen, wondering if you really just saw what you think you saw. Spoiler alert, you did. It's worse than you think. And just when you think you've got a handle on the family drama aspect, the movie hits you with ancient demon worship, because apparently regular family gatherings weren't awkward enough. They had to add ritualistic sacrifice to the mix. It's always ritualistic sacrifice. How come every family reunion I go to, there's always ritualistic sacrifice? sacrifice. I'm sick of it. Anyways, this is just like a family reunion meets a satanic book club, and everyone forgot to bring the potato salad, and, well, apparently the potato salad is made of blood. But here's the thing about Hereditary. It doesn't just scare you while you're watching it. It plants itself in your brain and starts redirecting your little corners of your head. You're gonna find yourself checking your dark corners before bed, side-eyeing any weird family heirlooms, and seriously reconsidering your stance on attic storage. And to all you brave souls in the comments typing, "Not scary," right now, I see you, and I don't believe you. This movie had hardcore horror fans sleeping with their lights on. But hey, prove me wrong. Film yourself watching it alone at night, and if you're not scared at all, I'll e-transfer you $5. For real, this is the horror movie I recommend for people that are wanting to get into horror. I think this is one of the scariest, most recent horror movies out there, but it's not as scary as some of the more obscure ones we're about to talk about. But if you were new to horror, definitely check out this movie. Because if you think that family possession is rough, wait until we talk about The Thing. Because sometimes the scariest monster is the friend sitting right next to you, or at least what's wearing their face. Now, The Thing isn't just body horror meets Among Us. It's Trust Issues, the movie. And if you think your group chat is chaotic, wait until your friends start sprouting tentacles. Imagine being stuck in the world's worst Airbnb. It's freezing, your roommates are suspicious, and yeah, one of them might be a cosmic shapeshifter who wants to wear your skin as a new fashion statement. Welcome to John Carpenter's The Thing, where sus isn't just an Among Us reference. In fact, Among Us was based on this movie. Pretty damn cool, because I love Among Us. Let's talk about these effects for a second. In an age where CGI makes everything look like a video game cutscene, The Thing said, "Hold my beer," and created practical effects so disturbing that the crew members had nightmares. That's right, the people making the movie were scared of it. When your special effects team needs therapy after you're done the movie, you know you're doing something right. And you think you've experienced group tension before? Please. I've been in Discord calls less paranoid than this movie. Every scene is like watching the most intense game of werewolf ever played, except instead of voting someone out because they're sus, you're trying to figure out who's going to turn into a walking biology experiment gone wrong. And these aren't your typical monster transformations. This isn't some cute little werewolf situation where you grow some fur and develop a sudden interest in chasing squirrels. Like, you're not becoming a furry here. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There are any furries watching? Respect. No, this is a full-on your head detaches and grows spider legs territory. Is there furries that are like into this sort of thing? Like, can you imagine there's a furry, but instead of wearing like a fursona, they have like a body horror sona? I don't know. I'm gonna Google this after. Anyways, the blood test scene in this movie, it's pure genius. It's like a drug test at work, but instead of losing your job, you lose your life. And don't even get me started on the ending of the movie. It's the kind of ambiguous finale that's still causing arguments on Reddit 40 years later. But here's what makes The Thing truly terrifying. It plays on our very real fear that we can't trust our own eyes. The people we know could completely change, and we wouldn't know until it's too late. It's basically a metaphor for dating in your 30s. If you really think about it, who can you trust? And to everyone commenting, I would have known if my friend was The Thing. Really? You can't even tell if your bestie is mad at you over text. Good luck spotting an alien shapeshifter. But speaking of trust issues, let's talk about The Conjuring, because sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's trying to get in, it's what's already inside your house waiting. The Conjuring isn't just another haunted house movie. It's what happens when your dream home's previous tenant refuses to pay their spiritual rent. And no amount of sage burning is gonna fix this situation. Because you know those too good to be true real estate listings? Well, this is why you should always read the reviews, if there is any reviews. The pair and family thought they were going to get a steal on a charming farmhouse. Instead, they got a house with more spirits than your local liquor store. Enter the Warrens, basically the ghost-busting power couple of the 1970s. And before you skeptics start rolling your eyes, let me remind you that this case is documented, like actually documented. Not my cousin's friend's dog walker saw a ghost documented, but there are legitimate police reports documented. Yes, this movie is based on real life. What makes The Conjuring different from your typical haunted house movie is how it builds tension. Most horror movies these days throw jump scares at you like they're trying to win a carnival game. But James Wan, this man treats fear like a fine wine. He lets it breathe. Every creak, every shadow, every time someone says, "Did you hear that?" makes you want to yell at your TV like you're watching a really bad decision in a reality show. Take the hide and clap scene. It's literally just a game of Marco Polo, but somehow it's more terrifying than most movies' entire runtime. I have not played Marco Polo since watching this movie. Actually, I avoid clapping in general now. My friends think I'm rude at concerts, but I'm just trying to avoid summoning anything. And let's talk about Bathsheba, the witch who makes your ex look like a minor inconvenience. This entity doesn't just want to scare you, it wants to redecorate your soul. It's like having the world's world's worst interior designer, but instead of suggesting awful wallpaper, they're suggesting death. The scariest part, this movie made people afraid of their own homes. Do you know how messed up that is? It's like making people afraid of their own beds, which, by the way, this movie also manages to do. I spent a week sleeping on my couch after watching this. Like, your home is supposed to be your safe place. That's the whole point of a home. Can you imagine being too scared to even come home alone? But if you think haunted houses are bad, wait until we talk about Sinister. Because sometimes the scariest home videos aren't the weird shit you found on your mom's VHS cam. I am sorry that happened to you. No child should have to see that. Sinister isn't just a movie about found footage. It's what happens when your midnight YouTube rabbit hole fights back. And trust me, no amount of don't forget to like and subscribe and smash that notification bell, my broskies. What's up, Logan? Let's pop in.
Good morning, Logan. What's poppin'?
Can prepare you for these home movies. Let's talk about career choices that should raise red flags. Moving your family into a murder house, probably a bad idea. Finding mysterious Super 8 films in your murder house attic, yeah, not a good idea. Watching said murder films at 3 a.m. while drinking whiskey, congratulations, you're more cringe than this guy.
When you drink this Among Us potion at 3 a.m., you turn into the imposter from Among Us.
But here's the thing, these aren't your typical cursed videos. They're not like The Ring where you get a courtesy call before you die. These Super 8 films are basically snuff films directed by the world's most twisted art house director. And the soundtrack, imagine if a demon got really experimental with jazz. That's what we're dealing with here. Then there's Bugul, or as I like to call him, what if a psychopath designed a Norse god? This entity isn't just content with haunting people. He's out here building his own murder-themed social media network before Instagram was even a thing. Talk about being ahead of the curve. The really disturbing part isn't even the kills in this movie. It's how this movie turns innocent family moments into psychological warfare. You'll never look at home movies the same way again. Those cute videos of your kids, better check the background for any ancient deities. Family pool party, more like potential crime scene 10 years later. Watching Ethan Hawke slowly lose his mind is like watching someone doom scroll at 4 a.m. You know they should stop, but they just keep going. And the worst part, this movie makes you do the exact same thing. You want to look away from these Super 8 films, but you can't. It's like true crime documentaries meet cosmic horror, and they decided to trauma bond together to make this disturbing baby. I watched this movie alone in my apartment, and by the end, I was convinced my printer was possessed. It was just low on ink, but try telling that to my anxious brain at 3 a.m. But if you think modern horror is rough, let's time travel back to when everything was terrible anyways. The Witch is about to make you really grateful for electricity and maybe a little suspicious of your goat if you have one. The Witch isn't just a period piece about colonial horror. It's what happens when your off-coded cottagecore fantasy goes horribly wrong. And trust me, no amount of aesthetic TikToks can prepare you for this level of authentic 1630s experience. Every creator is deathly afraid of getting canceled on Twitter. Well, try getting canceled by your entire Puritan community. This family gets exiled faster than people unfollowing an influencer doing a scandal. Instead of moving to Los Angeles and then starting a new account, they set up shop right next to the world's most suspicious forest. Now, this isn't your typical witch movie with green skin and flying broomsticks. Robert Eggers said forget everything you learned from Harry Potter and went straight to the actual historical documents about witchcraft. This man read real witch trial transcripts and thought, yeah, this would make a great movie. Spoiler alert, he was right, and I hate him for it. Let's talk about Black Phillip, the goat that makes everyone suspicious of farm animals. This isn't some cute petting zoo situation. This goat has better acting credits than most Hollywood stars, and he didn't even need to join a union. He's just out here living deliciously and ruining petting zoos for an entire generation. The dialogue is also so historically accurate that you'll need subtitles even though they're speaking English. It's like you're trying to read your grandparents' text, but everyone's accursing each other of witchcraft. In the lighting, everything's shot by candlelight or natural light, which means you'll be squinting at your screen like you're trying to read a restaurant menu in pitch black darkness. But what makes The Witch truly terrifying isn't just the supernatural stuff. It's watching this family absolutely implode. It's like Thanksgiving dinner with your relatives, but instead of arguing about politics, they're arguing about Satan. And honestly, sometimes those things feel like the same thing anyways. I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but politics feels like demon worship these days. I watched this in theaters when it first came out, and someone brought their emotional support water bottle. By the end, they needed their emotional support for their emotional support. But if historical horror isn't your thing, let's fast forward to the 1970s, when Michael Myers decided that babysitting needed a serious career career hazard warning. And no, we're not talking about the guy who plays Shrek. I hate that people get this confused all the time. This is not Shrek. This is someone bad. Shrek is a good guy. Shrek's hot. Shrek's sexy. Michael Myers is not. Michael Myers will kill you. Halloween isn't just another slasher film. It's what happens when the boogeyman gets really, really tired of all the white girls posting about spooky season. And no amount of pumpkin spice lattes are going to save them from his wrath. Let's start with that opening sequence. A 6-minute POV shot that makes found footage look like amateur hour. John Carpenter said, let's make the audience complicit in murder. And somehow he got away with it. And that's just the first 6 minutes. Imagine starting your movie with a child murder and thinking, yeah, we can top this. Now, Michael Myers isn't your typical movie villain. This man turns walking into psychological warfare. No running, no parkour, no fancy moves, just relentless walking. He's like that one guy at the gym who's only doing the treadmill, but somehow stays terrifying. This is basically the cardio king of terror. And that music score, John Carpenter wrote it in 3 days. It's literally just 5 notes, but somehow it's more anxiety inducing than all my unread emails this morning. That's it. That's the whole theme. And yet every time you hear it, your fight or flight response kicks in like you just remembered a Zoom meeting you're already late for. Jamie Lee Curtis gave us the original Final Girl, and she didn't even have the benefit of watching other horror movies to know the rules. There was no Scream manual, no internet forums, just pure survival instinct and a coat hanger. Your how to survive a horror movie videos that Chupacabra loves to post could never even hold up to these. But the genius part of this movie, Michael's called the shape in the credits. He's not even given the dignity of a proper name. He's just a shape in the background, watching, like that one person who views all your Instagram stories but never actually likes any of your posts. Actually, that's a bit scarier because they're usually creepy men trying to hit on women. That's kind of f***ed up. They did this because he's literally just the shape of evil. That's like the whole lore behind it. I watched this movie during actual Halloween night. Worst decision ever. I had explained to 3 trick-or-treaters why I answered the door with a kitchen knife and a panicked look. There was cops at my door the next day. Speaking of isolation horror, let's talk about The Shining. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't a masked killer. It's being trapped in a luxury hotel with your family during winter break. Trust me, that sounds like hell. The Shining isn't just a haunted hotel story. It's what happens when your Airbnb host forgets to mention the slight paranormal activity in their 5-star reviews. No amount of complimentary breakfast can make up for the twins in the hallway staring at you. First off, let's appreciate how Stanley Kubrick made a hotel look more threatening than most movies' actual monsters do. This man spent more time arranging furniture than I've spent on my entire life plan. And somehow every single carpet pattern looks like it was designed by someone having an existential crisis while doing meth. You know those impossibly quiet moments before something terrible happens? Kubrick turned that into an art form. Just a kid riding his big wheel through an empty hallway. And somehow it's more nerve-wracking than your entire student loan debt. The sound design alone, carpet, hardwood, is basically ASMR for anxiety. You know what? That's a good business idea. What if we took ASMR and instead of making it calming and nice to listen to, we just made it induce anxiety? So basically it's like, "Bah!" And then it's like, yay, you have anxiety. Honestly, it could be like some sort of like exposure therapy thing. And then your anxiety could be reduced by like listening to this. Like, it can help people that are like sensitive to sounds. It's my business. If you steal it, I'm suing you. Now let's talk about Jack Nicholson's performance. This man didn't just chew the scenery. He made an entire buffet and ate that shit and left no crumbs. You watch his descent into madness and think, well, maybe I'm not such a bad employee after all. At least when I have had a bad day at work, I don't try to axe murder my family. You know, that's setting the bar pretty low there, Jack. But the room 237 scene, that's Kubrick teaching us why you should always read the hotel reviews thoroughly. Beautiful view, great amenities, slight issue with decomposing woman in bathtub. Would have been nice to know before booking, don't you think? This is why we can't trust 5-star ratings anymore. They're all like AI bots and shit. I trust a hotel with a ton of 4.5 ratings more than I trust any hotel with only 5-star ratings, because we never say 5 stars for anything. It's just how humans are. In the hedge maze, it's like watching the world's most stressful Google Maps navigation. In 100 feet, turn left to avoid your axe-wielding father. Thanks, but I think I'll just freeze to death instead. But the real horror here, Kubrick made them shoot the scene where Shelley Duvall runs up the stairs screaming 127 times. That's not directing. That's just bullying with extra steps. No wonder she looks terrified. She probably saw the daily shooting schedule schedule. That's gotta be psychological torture somehow. Her mind is probably just blank and numb after that day. But if you think a haunted house is bad, wait until we talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because sometimes the real horror isn't supernatural at all. Sometimes it's just a family barbecue gone very, very wrong. And trust me, their secret recipe isn't something you want to even know about. Texas Chainsaw Massacre isn't just another slasher film. It's what happens when your GPS says turn left and your survival instincts scream absolutely not when you see the creepy house you're pulling into. Because no amount of true crime podcast experience can prepare you for this family reunion. You know how every horror movie now needs some elaborate backstory? This film said nah and just dropped us straight into hell. No explanation needed. Just Texas, summer heat, and the worst road trip since your family tried visiting Disney World in August. The genius part? This movie was made with less money than most people spend on their wedding. The difference is that this actually delivers on the promise of lifelong trauma. Well, I mean, my ex-wife Becky did after we got married. We're not married anymore, so I guess it's like the same thing, but that was its own horror movie, but I don't want to talk about it, don't ask. Let's talk about Leatherface's entrance though. No dramatic buildup, no ominous music, just wham! It just happens. There's not much to it. And that infamous dinner scene, that's what happens when your relatives won't stop asking why you're single at Thanksgiving. Except instead of passive-aggressive comments about your life choices, you get, well, let's just say it's not turkey they're eating. The actors were actually trapped in the scene for 27 straight hours of filming. I made that up, but you believed it if it was true. And the sound of that chainsaw, that's real too. No fancy sound effects needed, just pure, unfiltered nightmare fuel powered by good old-fashioned gasoline. They probably spent more on chainsaw fuel than they did on craft services on this film set. I watched this on a first date once. There wasn't a second date, but I did develop a healthy suspicion of rural gas stations. So I guess that counts as personal growth. But if you think that rural Texas is scary, I mean, look at the state of it these days. Wait until we talk about Wreck, because sometimes the real horror isn't out in the middle of nowhere. It's right in your apartment building. And your neighbor's weird noises at 3 a.m. are about to become the least of your problems. Wreck isn't just another found footage movie. It's what happens when your apartment's maintenance request goes from broken elevator to demonic demon outbreak in under an hour. And no, your security deposit isn't covering this kind of damage. Picture the most boring news assignment ever, following firefighters on a routine call. It's like watching paint dry, but you know, with better uniforms. That's how this movie starts, but trust me, it ends up making your worst neighbor disputes look like an episode of Sesame Street. The beauty of Wreck is how it goes from zero to no faster than your paycheck disappears on rent day. 1 minute they're dealing with a noise complaint, the next minute, well, let's just say this is why you should always read the fine print on your lease agreement, especially the part about demonic possession clauses. Then the government shows up and seals everyone inside. Not with a polite email or a strongly worded letter. They straight up turn the building into the world's worst escape room. And unlike your typical escape room, the timer isn't counting down to victory. It's counting down to hope you've got good health insurance, because you are my dude. The scariest part, that attic scene. You think your storage unit is bad? This attic makes your childhood fear of the dark look completely rational. When they switch to night vision, it's like watching the world's most terrifying Instagram filter. Yeah, no amount of white girl aesthetic is gonna fix this situation. And these aren't your typical zombies who just want brains. These infected are like steroided up fitness enthusiasts who had way too much pre-workout and meth. They're fast, they're angry, and they really want to share the new lifestyle with you, whether you want it or not. I watched this movie in Spanish with English subtitles, and let me tell you, terror is universal. You don't need to understand the language to know that means we're all gonna die in many cultures. These are 10 movies that made me shit my pants. And if you want to shit your pants too, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. If we get this video 10,000 likes, I'll do another video talking about all the movies you guys suggest in the comments. But if you're looking for more horror content, then you should check out this video right now, because you ain't surviving these horror movies.